Late at night on March 12, 2022, Southern Carolina deputies ended up in a high-speed chase with a 2019 Dodge Challenger, ultimately trying to use a pit maneuver in order to bring the vehicle to a stop, but they were unsuccessful. Driving the vehicle was 37-year-old Dejon Anderson, who shockingly had her 5-year-old son Cairo Jordan in the car with her. The chase eventually came to an end because she ran out of gas. She was taken into custody for her crimes, only to pay bail and be let out the following day, getting arrested again 3 weeks later, except for this time it was around 500 miles north of South Carolina in Louisville, Kentucky, for attempting to steal some clothes from a store and then punching the security guard right in the face. In a sick turn of events, she was let out of jail once again less than 2 weeks after this incident. 5 days later, her beautiful 5-year-old son Cairo would be found dead. This story is one of the most complex and eventful I have ever put together, taking many twists and turns along the way. Therefore, I printed out the probable cause affidavit after going through the majority of the information online to get the best understanding to give to you. For the sake of validity, I will mainly be referring to the legal documents I have in front of me as we move forward. This video does involve the death of a child, and you should turn back now if that could harm you or your mental health. Welcome back to the dark side of life. On October 24, 2016, in the city of Atlanta, Georgia, precious Cairo Ammar Jordan was introduced to the world. He was born to his parents, Dejon Anderson and Vincent Charles Jordan Jr., both of whom were thrilled to see their new son, who was born at the Northside Hospital in Atlanta. Cairo was a warm, sweet little boy who was fast to find the things that he loved, like his dinosaurs that you could often find him playing with. His paternal grandmother described him as a very joyous child, who definitely liked to run around and play a lot. She also noted he didn't have many kids around him to engage with growing up, and it's my understanding Dejon had custody of Cairo from the start. It's apparent that Vincent and Dejon did not have a good relationship at all. In fact, it turned sour sometime in 2017. Up until this point, I have no reason to believe that Vincent wasn't able to see his son and spend time with him if he chose to. At the beginning of their custody battle that started in 2017, Vincent claims it was then that Dejon took Cairo away from him, keeping him from being able to see his son, and started threatening to call the police on him if he showed up to their house to pick Cairo up, saying when he showed up in court to fight for his son, she and Cairo never appeared. By the time Cairo was 3 years old, he was long gone and disconnected from his father and paternal side of the family. Dejon had blocked the majority of them, and she never updated them on where she and Cairo would be so that they could visit him. And I'm not entirely sure why they still claim she seemed like a good mother if that was the case, because it's clear that no one knew where Cairo was besides Dejon and her friend Donnie Lane Coleman. Dejon and Cairo would move around a lot, but Cairo would mainly grow up in the Atlanta, Georgia area. Her friend Don Coleman would move around with them and live with them for the entirety of this time. When Dejon was not looking after Cairo, it was Don who was taking care of the child. His family also said there was no indication that Cairo was in any danger at the time, so they weren't so much worried about his safety. Unfortunately, they couldn't be more wrong. Cairo was not in good hands, rather was in the hands of two criminals who would eventually turn on him. On a Saturday night in March of 2022, Dejon and Don were traveling down the interstate in South Carolina with 5-year-old Cairo in the back seat. Driving quite recklessly, she was spotted in her 2019 Dodge Challenger going 30 miles per hour over the speed limit. So the South Carolina Highway Patrol officer who saw her attempted to pull her over, but she refused to slow down. She instead tried to flee and evade the officer, taking law enforcement on a high-speed chase that lasted a distance of over 30 miles. The pursuing officers finally made the decision that they needed to try a pit maneuver, which was ultimately unsuccessful. However, Dejon was forced to pull over shortly after they tried the pit maneuver because her car ran out of gas and died on them, giving the officers enough time to surround their vehicle. Initially, while the cops are yelling at the duo to open the door, they don't listen to their commands until one of the officers starts beating on the window with his baton, trying to bust the glass. At that point, Dawn would open her door and she immediately tells the police officers to hold on. There's a baby in here. I don't have nothing.
We're gonna bust the glass!
When the doors finally opened, troopers took out Dawn Coleman first.
Oh no, there's a baby right there. I don't have nothing.
Next, they pulled Dejon from the driver's seat, getting both of the adults in handcuffs before turning their attention to the 5-year-old boy. And Cairo was probably terrified, but was just trying to focus on where his toys had gone in the chaos.
Here, hold your jacket, okay? Back out. Let's try to get you out of here. Y'all just ran out of gas.
Yes, that's why we were trying to hurry up and
Get the Georgia?
Yes.
All right, ma'am, you are under arrest, okay?
When they asked Dejon what Cairo's name was, she would tell them his name is Jordan.
What's his name? Jordan?
They take Dejon into custody for child endangerment and speeding. After being informed she is going to jail for the night, the officer would come back to Dejon and ask her again what the child's name was, and this time she would reply with Jason. His name is Jason Jordan. At the same time, Dawn starts to tell authorities that she and Dejon are related, that they are actually sisters, and she is Jason's aunt, and he can be left in her care since Dejon is going to jail. Mind you, none of this is even true. She isn't her sister, they are not related in any way, and his name is Cairo. The trooper decides he needs to make a phone call to his sergeant for instructions on what to do in this situation. After he makes the call, he swiftly comes back to tell Dawn that Jason will be left in her custody for the time being. The authorities were also providing a hotel room for Dawn and Cairo to stay in for the night, paid for by them.
I'm gonna call the lieutenant. Okay. And see what you want to do with me. She's his sister. Just get the child, Jason, with you, and get him up to the 33 at a hotel for the night until y'all got...
So that's exactly what happened. Dejon was taken down to the Colleton County Jail, while Dawn was transported with Cairo to a Hilton hotel room and given instructions on how they could contact Dejon after she was booked into county. Dejon would pay her bail the following day and be released. She was scheduled to appear in court shortly after she got out. When her court date rolled around and it was her time to stand in front of a judge, she was nowhere to be found. Her, Dawn, and Cairo instead traveled up to Louisville, Kentucky, which is approximately 500 miles northwest of South Carolina. The exact reason she fled to Louisville is unknown, but one could assume she was just trying to escape the consequences of her actions. There was also a warrant for her arrest issued after she failed to appear in court. Dejon wasn't able to stay out of trouble for long after they made it to Kentucky. 19 days after her high-speed chase, she was at the Oxmoor Mall located on Shelbyville Road. She was apparently walking throughout the mall that day and waltzed into a Von Moore store, and moments before she was caught on security camera, loss prevention would witness her start stuffing different clothing items into a bag she was carrying, clearly trying to steal from the store. They radioed in to the security officers that were nearby so they could stop her before she got away with the merchandise. The camera was pointing directly at the front door of the store, and you can see Dejon attempting to leave the store when she is stopped by two of the officers. One of them grabs her by the arm and they start leading her back into the store to check her bag and get their items back. Before they could even make it out of the camera frame, Dejon would snap and punch the guy that was holding onto her right in the face. After that, they would just take her right into custody and eventually transport her down to the Jefferson County, Kentucky jail, where she was booked on charges of robbery in the second degree and hitting that officer in the face. During this stint behind bars, Cairo was again in Dawn Coleman's care, and they were temporarily staying with a cousin of hers by the name Vera. We know this for a fact because while Dejon was incarcerated, she would make a number of phone calls to a woman believed to be Dawn where they would tell each other this information. Dawn would tell Dejon that her and Cairo were doing okay, and that's where they would be when she got out. Meanwhile, Vincent and his paternal side of the family have no idea that any of this is transpiring. They are operating under the belief that Dejon is a great mother and is taking care of Cairo, when in reality, she is in and out of jail, taking him on high-speed chases, and leaving him with Dawn, her partner in crime, who thinks Cairo is a soulless vessel. It seems that Dawn and Dejon started to believe there was some form of evil presence or demon inside of Cairo's body, and their beliefs only got stronger with time. Social media posts would come to light that give us an insight into the mind of these two, and how Dejon and Dawn viewed Cairo as a demon. I'm going to share these posts with you so we have a better understanding of what Cairo was up against as an innocent 5-year-old boy. Dejon remained in custody for just over a week this time, and for some reason, the judge decided to let her out on personal recognizance, meaning she didn't have to pay bail in order to get out of jail, basically just a written promise to appear in court and not commit further crimes. Why the judge chose to do this, I have no idea, but the consequences were detrimental, and Cairo was found dead within a week. The following portion of this video will contain the details of Cairo's death and the multitude of Facebook posts made by Dawn and Dejon referring to his demonic presence. What happened to Cairo Jordan is heartbreaking, and if you are not ready to take that in, now is the time to click off this video.
If there's people there that don't need to be there, they're holding up space for something that you want to have.
I'm not going to leave any posts or messages out, and I will keep the dates they were posted in order. Keep in mind some of these dates are prior to the first time Dejon got arrested, 1 or 2 during by Dawn, and a few more after Dejon got out the last time. The search warrant that was executed was for the Facebook accounts of only Dawn and Dejon, and the arrest affidavit doesn't specify who Dejon was sending these messages to, but I can only assume they were sending them back and forth to each other. However, that isn't certain, as she would also tweet at doctors and other people with her demon talk. On December 5th, 2021, Dejon sent a message from her Facebook account under the name Katu Katu. The message read, "My son name is Cairo Ammar Jordan." The next one read, "I offer reversal spell, protection spell, activating your DNA, exorcism, hex/curse." Those were the only messages that were sent. After that, the post started becoming public for everyone to see, yet no one saw the danger that Cairo was in. A month later, on January 5th of 2022, Dawn Coleman would post this on her Facebook account under the name Ankh Kek. I'm using my blood for this ritual. On February 19th, 2022, Dejon would post on her Facebook account again, this time opening up a little bit more, saying, "Can't wait to tell my story. I had to raise my frequency, heal myself in past lives, heal my ancestors, heal shit in the universe, heal Gaia to exorcism a very powerful demonic force from within my son. Had people in enough alignment with their soul to assist me. Still, I chose my soul and was able to completely heal myself and remove old paradigms from my mind. I know you can choose your soul with no questions asked." Then Dejon gets arrested on March 12th in South Carolina for going 92 in a 60-mile-per-hour zone. Only 3 days after she was arrested, she made another Facebook post on March 15th, 2022. With some of these writings, you start to think she might genuinely believe her son is a demon or an old man trapped inside of a child's body. Whether the duo is on drugs or this is some form of mental breakdown or psychotic break is unclear. But the subsequent message on the 15th of March read, "Stop getting caught up in the vessels of this realm. You guys get caught up with how old the body is, if they adults and kids, etc. Don't even know it's a full-grown demon in the child body telling you what to do because you didn't choose your soul. Better start using your third eye." 3 days later, Dejon posts again. "Can't wait to tell this story about that exorcism, a book about living with a demonic child, a podcast." Their accounts would stay silent for the remainder of March, with Dejon walking into that Von Moore store on the 31st and not getting out of jail until April 11th. The following post was made by Dawn Coleman on April 8th, 2022, while Dejon was in jail and she was in custody of Cairo. The post said, Just because the avatar is of what we call a child does not mean that it is actually a child. There are beings that are here that are not supposed to be here, that pick avatars to hide behind, to play roles, to steal energy and ruin lives. You better check to see if the children that you think are children actually have souls, or if they're not malevolent beings with a soul and in a child avatar. Magic is real, curses are real, and there are some very powerful evil beings that will curse your womb and then some. Nothing is what it seems, and we are catering to evil beings and children avatars that aren't even children. They'll need to rise, most won't, most will be wiped out because of your demons, and this paradigm has no room for that. AK MG. 2 days after this, while she is still in custody of Cairo, she posts again. Most of the children aren't even really children at that, just an avatar playing a character. On April 11th, 2022, the same day that Dejon got out of jail, one of the first things she did was make a Facebook post. Just got out of a jail mission. Yes, had to do some healing and killing. The following day on the 12th, she would tweet at a Catholic priest in Indiana by the name of Vincent Lampert saying, "Good day, sir. I need to speak with you urgently. I have survived the death attacks from my 5-year-old throughout the 5 years he has been alive. I have been able to weaken his powers through our blood. I have his real name and he is 100 years old. Need assistance." Then 2 days after that post, on April 14th, both Don and Dejon's cell phone data showed that they traveled approximately 45 minutes outside of Louisville into Washington County of Indiana. The cell tower data places the duo in the area of Holder Road for about 45 minutes, from 4:30 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. So without question, they spent about 45 minutes on Holder Road before driving back to their original spot in Louisville. The next day, on the 15th, the final post from Dejon was made on the same account she made the others. The post said, "This is a whole demon in a child body. Why you think she need a cigarette? Losing energy, huh? 64 years old in a child body. Was full of gifts and magical rights, stronger than many of you because your frequency not high enough. Start asking spirit to reveal these things to you hiding behind a body." Now she's clearly losing touch with reality, and it's fucked up that nobody saw these posts and made the connection that she has a 5-year-old son who is in serious danger. These posts become all the more eerie when you realize by the time she made the last post on April 15th about a whole demon in a child's body, Cairo was already dead.
Because when I first saw that little feller's face, it was like he was screaming help to me.
After a long day in Indiana, the evening finally came around, and Jeffrey Meredith, who lived in the area, wanted to go out foraging for mushrooms. It was about 7 p.m. when he headed out into the wooded area on his property to see what he could find. This area was somewhat near a road and had other properties connected to it. After Jeffrey searched on his land for a while, he would cross over to another property that runs right along the north side of Holder Road. As he was searching for mushrooms, a bright blue object that was just laying in the forest caught his attention. So he looks over to see a bright blue suitcase with a Las Vegas design on it was just left there. It was fairly visible and not covered by anything. Jeffrey decided he was going to approach the suitcase so he could investigate and see what someone chose to leave there. When he unzipped the suitcase and opened it up, he found a pillow on top of a black trash bag that was closed, so Jeffrey moves the pillow and then rips the bag open to find 5-year-old Cairo Jordan looking right back at him, as if he was saying, "Help me," to Jeffrey. Without second thought, he stopped, pulled his phone out, and called 911 to report what he just found.
I'll never forget that words that state trooper told me. There's not going to be a moment lost that we won't be looking and trying to help this little feller. And he promised me, and he came through, that he would find. It feels like the weight of the world went off my shoulder because I got his name now. I did not want to go out of this world without knowing that little boy's name. Because when I first saw that little feller's face, it was like he was screaming help to me. The only help I know to do is to call 911. And that's what I did.
And it worked.
Yeah. Thank God for the Indiana State Troopers.
Washington County Deputy Matt Hine was the very first officer to arrive in the area, quickly running over to the suitcase to check out the scene, confirming that it was indeed the body of a 5-year-old black child. Now, here's where things get confusing for those involved. Up until the time he was discovered, there was no reports of a missing child, and when they announced his death in Indiana, and the fact they found this unidentified 5-year-old black child dead, no one came forward. It's shocking when you learn he went unidentified for months, and the community even had a service for him where they labeled him Angel because nobody stepped up. His family members in South Carolina hadn't heard the news yet, and they had no way to find out. They weren't contacted and informed of Cairo's death. It blows my mind and breaks my heart, and Jeffrey Meredith felt the same way. He was terrified of passing away without ever knowing the boy's name.
Nobody should ever have to go through the situation that I went through. When I opened that suitcase and I seen that little feller, his eyeballs, he was like he was screaming to me, help. And the only thing I knew to do is to call 911. They help him. That's the only way I knew to help him. A feller I can't help from getting emotional about him. But I'm glad I found his name, because I was so worried that I would pass in my life without ever knowing that little feller's name or where he was from. That was the most important thing in the world.
The investigation into Cairo's death continued, and police spoke to a resident who lived on Holder Road and were able to obtain footage that his home security camera had captured. It showed Dejon driving her Challenger up Holder Road, and then she stopped in the same exact area that Jeffrey would discover the suitcase. They also found footage of her 2019 Dodge Challenger driving down the interstate back to Kentucky from Indiana, just after the time they spent on Holder Road, although this was the only evidence they had going forward. It was roughly a month and a half after he was discovered, they held a service for him in Salem, Indiana, where many members of the community showed up for the boy they never knew. Not one person at this event had ever met him, but they all made an appearance for him, especially Jeffrey Meredith, who wouldn't miss a second of it. The break in the case came later that month on the 29th of June and was discovered by Mallory Webb, a forensic scientist for the Indiana State Police. She contacted the lead investigators of the case after obtaining a fingerprint match from 2 of the trash bags that were found inside of the blue suitcase. She said the match came back to Dejon Ludi Anderson, who was born on September 21st, 1985. Shortly after that, the authorities were able to obtain a search warrant for the boy and identified him as her son, 5-year-old Cairo Ammar Jordan. However, authorities would not announce that publicly until months after the fact. The second break in the case came from the same forensic scientist, who acquired a second pair of fingerprint matches from the trash bags, this time coming back to Dawn Elaine Coleman, who was born on March 11, 1982. The second match was made on July 25, 2022, leading investigators to dig deeper into their backgrounds, gathering more information on the duo that they're now hunting for.
Evil monsters is all I can say. I just don't see how people could be so evil.
In the midst of the manhunt, an autopsy was completed on Cairo's body, and it revealed some disturbing details about his final days. The report stated there was a lack of significant traumatic injuries and no anatomical cause of death. Turns out he died from an electrolyte imbalance that was due to him being dehydrated, which was likely caused by a stomach bug or gastroenteritis, meaning Cairo was extremely sick and was dehydrated from vomiting and having diarrhea. So after he expelled all of his fluid from his body, he was never cared for. He was never given the food and water that he needed, and they just watched him suffer until he died. This poor boy must have been in excruciating pain, and at times most likely became delirious and confused as to what was even going on, which is a symptom of being severely dehydrated. After Cairo's little body finally gave up on him and he passed away, his mother and Dawn bagged his body up and then shoved it into the bright blue Las Vegas suitcase that was seemingly Dawn's, and then they got in the car and drove him out to Indiana to discard of him in the woods there, driving back to Kentucky to continue their lives as if Cairo never existed. It sickens me what this poor boy went through, as his mother was looking at him like a demon, when in reality he was insanely sick and needed love and care, but never got it, and I can only imagine how they were truly treating him up until he died. It wasn't until 6 months after he died, on October 19th, 2022, that authorities announced Don Coleman had been apprehended and taken into custody in California, and the 5-year-old child had been identified as 5-year-old Cairo Ammar Jordan of Atlanta, Georgia. The unfortunate part of this is 37-year-old Dejon Anderson has yet to be found. She hasn't been seen in some time and was last spotted near the Los Angeles area. Although she's known for staying on the move, and she could be anywhere. Places she's known to go would be San Diego, San Francisco, Houston, and Las Vegas. Anyone who sees her is urged to call the public authorities. She's about 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighing around 135 pounds, and what you are looking at is one of the most current pictures of her. She is wanted on charges of neglect of a dependent resulting in death, as well as obstruction of justice, and she will be charged with murder pending her arrest. She needs to pay for what she's done to her beautiful 5-year-old son, and I pray she's found soon. These videos of Dawn on Instagram have a very disturbing vibe when you're informed on what would eventually come of this situation, knowing that Cairo was left in this wicked woman's care, knowing that innocent child suffered until he died, and then got shoved into that hard-shell suitcase and left in a cold forest for days.
Yeah, when you raise your vibration, the people that are no longer in alignment to your new frequency, it kind of does help get those people out of the way or out of the space that you need to have for things that you need to have. If there's people there that don't need to be there, they're holding up space for something that you want to have.
After becoming incarcerated, going to court, facing life in prison without the possibility of parole, Dawn decided to take a plea deal. She agreed to plead guilty in exchange for 25 years in prison, as well as an additional 5 years probation, and she got credit for 1.5 years time served. Finally, she agreed to testify against Dejon Anderson in any case that should be raised against her if she's captured. She admitted to her part in trying to conceal the death of Cairo, saying she did help get his body into the suitcase and she went with Dejon to the area that dropped him off. However, she claims she had nothing to do with killing him, and she told authorities that she would follow Dejon around the country for a while, and she was taking care of Cairo when Dejon couldn't. She said she was living with Dejon and her son in a Louisville home that April. One day, when all 3 of them were home, she walked into one of the bedrooms of their home to find Dejon on top of Cairo, who was face down dead on the mattress, claiming it was already done, telling investigators that the trash bags were already in the room, and when Dejon asked her to help get rid of Cairo's body, she decided to. She does admit, however, that she was the one who carried the suitcase into the wooded area and left it there. It's up to you whether you believe her or not, but with the evidence that Dejon was not the only one posting about children not really being children, I wouldn't doubt that she's more involved in Cairo's death than she's letting on. The first thing I thought when I saw Don Coleman sitting in court staring blankly ahead of her was, damn, she got snapped back into reality out of this fantasy realm or whatever the fuck they were living in. It was a bittersweet day for the city of Salem, Indiana when Cairo was finally identified. They were all sad, but at the same time happy that his family would know and he wouldn't remain nameless forever. It's heartwarming to know the community stepped up without even knowing who the boy was. But now, we know his name, Cairo Jordan, and I don't think anyone was happier to hear those words than Jeffrey Meredith. This man brought tears to my eyes with how much he genuinely cared about finding out who Cairo was.
Cairo, it was the sweetest name I believe I've ever heard in my life. That's the truth. Wow. He was a handsome little feller, wasn't he?
A sweet, caring, innocent little boy who just wanted to be loved. He was a harmless child who had so much left to experience and so much life left to live. His smile speaks volumes into the kind, warm energy that he was about, always having fun, even if it was by himself playing with his dinosaurs and toys. He's being remembered by those who knew him as a sweet boy who would never hurt anyone. He would have turned 6 years old this October. Instead, his family is stuck trying to keep his memory alive while they wait for justice. You didn't deserve this, Cairo. You deserve the love and nourishment that any child needs to thrive. And I'm so sorry your sick mother did this to you. May justice be served for Cairo Ammar Jordan, who was found deceased on April 16, 2022.
That made you think about what life can be like without me in it.
Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's video. If you made it to the end, go down to the comment section and comment "Find the Wicked Witch" so I know. And if you want to, you can follow me on Instagram at Robert Clausen with 2 N's. If you have a story suggestion, DM me on there. I think that's all I have for you guys today. Again, I truly, truly appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Don't you just hate it, being away from someone you just wanna hold on to? It's driving me crazy, tired of waiting.